It's on record. Okay. Okay. So we're going to bring you feet about hip distance apart. So if we place the feet, just check that they're level front to back, check that there isn't a weird turnout going on, and then just have a check as well just to see whether it feels like naturally your weight is even left to right, or whether it's shifted and is it even from toes to heels. So you should feel the balls of the feet as well as a little bit of toes and heels. Okay, so feeling that centering idea. And then from there, just noticing whether the legs are relaxed or whether you're squeezing everything tight. Try to encourage it to relax. And maybe that does mean that you do squeeze your knees back and pull your kneecaps up and then let them relax. Then from there, open the shoulders, let the hands draw so that the middle finger is at the trouser seam. And that feeling of opening at the chest, you feel like it's not hard work to keep the hands there. And that lift up through, from middle back all the way up through the back of the head. And that feeling of dropping the tailbone down so everything feels lifted and long. And then from there, just slowly taking chin to chest. And then chin to the ceiling. And then back in, chin to chest. And chin to the ceiling. And then back in the center, looking over the right shoulder, keeping both shoulders connected behind. And then looking over the left. And then to the right. And to the left. And then coming back into center, right ear to right shoulder, but lift the left ear up away from the left shoulder. So you're reaching as opposed to shortening. And then same other side, but lifting up through the top ear and changing over again. And again. And then once you draw back into center, we're going to go straight down to feet. Okay, so I want you to have a look at them. And I want you to notice whether you're in socks or not. Try to think about opening and spreading the toes wide. So you're trying to pull baby toe away from the big toe. It's probably the easiest way to sort of explain it. And then let them relax down. So we're going to do your Mexican toes. So lifting up the big toe first of all. Big toes are up. And then press the big toe down. Then try to lift the baby toe. And then plant it down. So then you're going to go from big toe, next, all the way out until you get to baby toe, lifting intentionally, and then down with the baby toe, and then working the next toes down until you get to the big toe. We're going to do it once more. So again, whenever you're ready, just in your own time, working from big toe towards baby toe, and then from baby toe and back. And once we get them down, let them relax. And we're going to do just a couple of movements, so just about 2 or 3, where you're scrunching your toes and pulling all of them back towards the balls of the feet. Baby toe as well as big toes, everything in between. So scrunching and pulling them back, and then widen. So really lengthen them and let them go. So then that feeling of being hopefully a little bit switched on, the taller you reach up through your posture, letting the body tip in so that those toes are having to kind of work a little bit to press you down, finding your tipping point. And then coming backwards, and as you come back, trying to keep again that tension so you don't bend, everything's lifted. So taking it forwards again, feeling that press in with the toes, and then coming back. And then as we draw into center, so that sense of just shifting the weight and taking one knee up. And I want you to notice, so if you can see yourself on your own screen, for example, then I want you to notice, does anything kind of change in your body position? So the shoulders should be at level, so like if you don't look at yourself on the screen, your eye line shouldn't change, you know, it shouldn't start to drift to the side. So when you change from one foot to the other, there shouldn't be anything really like emphasized. So the box stays as a box, as opposed to feeling anything kind of twisting or moving. You know who you are if you have a little bit of that going on. So it might be a collapse of the hips. It might be a side bending strategy. It might even be that the body kind of turns a little bit either direction. So it's getting a sense of where are my hip bones pointing when I do this. Do they stay pointing straight ahead? So it should remain quite unexciting. You know, there shouldn't be any kind of twisting, side bending, collapsing. And that way we know in theory, when that's happening, if there's nothing descript happening, your glutes are what are holding you up and the core is helping to lift you. So it's just a little bit of a checkpoint, if you like. So then bring the feet down, and we're just going to take it into knees over the toes. So just to bring in that little bit of an Achilles stretch. So again, as we're going over, try to keep that sense that the knees are in line with your toes, that they're not collapsing inwards. And then up in the standing, so then if we bring one leg in front of the other, press that back heel down, and it's a case of Carol and seeing maybe with these, do these feel really tight on the side that's sore? So reaching down through the heel, almost kind of pressing the body weight back into to find an appropriate level of stretch. And then changing, and then compare and contrast. So again, trying to drive the heel down, those back toes are pointing straight ahead. Okay. And then releasing from there. Okay, so I'm going to get you to place your feet one in front of the other. Okay, so we're in a straight line with each other. I'll not do it on a seam, I'll definitely fall over. So this is where that balance idea, so we've narrowed your base of support. So from here, we still want the box to stay a box. So squeeze your butt. So imagine like in this position, you want your bottom sticking out. You want to squeeze your butt cheeks together. So sit bones squeezing close together. And that feeling that you're not hinging at the hips, everything's feeling lifted along, and your weight is in the middle of both feet, that you're not standing on one leg more than the other. And then just with the arms, just that little running movement. So elbows moving in behind. So you are challenging that range of movement. So you're not just going forwards. You're trying to pick those elbows up behind. Forward will naturally happen. Now as you're moving, get faster. And you're going to feel that stay balanced as you go through. That there has to be an awful lot of kind of bracing that goes on in the midsection. And release. Switch it over, other side. So again, foot in front of the other. Notice whether those hips are tucked in, bottom squeezed, everything's lifted, weight is centered between both feet. And when you're ready, those running arms, again, focusing on taking the elbow long and behind. The more it goes behind, the more it opens up that the shoulders, but getting a little bit faster. If you want to go really fast with these, both legs long and straight, squeezing the hips together, making sure that you're keeping elbows moving. You can see a few arms are kind of juggling. I want you to make sure it's the elbow drive behind, because that wants to throw your body forward, and I want to know you're stabilizing against that. And release. Okay. So all of that shoulder mobility, as well as like a good strong bracing, hopefully through the shoulders. So we're going to take you into your hip hinge. So imagine those hands are just sandwiched in at the hip. So the crease that you have just at the groin, pop the hands in there. Okay. Now once they're in there, you're going to send, feet are hip distance apart, you're going to send it back until you kind of like, you can't get your hands out anymore. So you're kind of squashing those in. So you're trying to go as deep as you can to get to that point where you can't pull your hands out, and then back up again. So you know whenever you're getting there, you're closing down that space between the waist and the thighs. And then squat, that's kind of what you want. So you can take your hands out wherever they feel comfortable to go, knowing that that's the range that you're working to. Arms can come forwards. You can have your hands on the chest. If you find it useful to keep your hands at the sandwich point, you can. So each time we're going down, take your weight onto your heels, recenter it again as you come back up. Weight back, weight centered. In breath down, out breath up. Squeeze the glutes at the top. So sit bones, everything squeezing in to kind of tuck the tailbone under when you rise up to the top. So you're going to feel more kind of tension develop at the highest point in terms of the glutes. But I want you to feel that lengthening, that stretch around the sit bone as you take it back, whatever depth you can get to. And that point when you drive your heels into the floor, hopefully that reconnects the glutes. So it's a stretch, squeeze, connect, and back up again. Okay, last one, and finished. Okay, so we're going to bring you down onto the floor. So we'll bring you onto your backs. So you can get yourself down whatever way feels comfortable. Okay. So bring it down. So bring yourself to lie down on your back. Okay. Now, once you get there, okay, take a full body stretch. Reach the arms out long, the legs out long. Just reach everything open and allow the ribs to lift. And then slowly alternating. So reaching one hand, one foot. And then slowly, once you've evened it up on both sides, and set it up so that you're in your normal start position. So the knees are bent, arms are down by your sides, and the spine is long, equal left to right, from the pelvis, from the shoulders. And then from there, if you allow just a couple of pelvic tilts, in breath to arch, and the out breath to flat back. Just taking it through that range of movement, just as a little awakening. And then find your way into neutral. And once you get yourself there, so we're going to slowly take it into just 2 shoulder bridges. So whenever you're ready, that slow roll of the spine, rolling up, finding a little bit of length at the top, and then that slow roll of the spine coming back down. So it's feeling that the core muscles are helping you on the way up. You get to the top, the glutes are going to be squeezing, and on the way down, just feeling again that sense that you are using those abdominals to kind of roll the spine back down again. So once we've done a couple of those, I want you to come up to the point where you feel like you've lifted the pelvis, but as much of your back or your ribs are on the floor as you can. So you're only partially coming up. So the hips are lifted, but the ribs are on the floor. Maybe even a little hint of the lower back, but mostly just ribs. So we're going to aim from there, just to allow a little movement of your knees to one side and then to the other. So you're trying to hold everything relatively still on the way through, so that you're not letting that position of the pelvis being off, so the glutes are working a little bit, the abs are working to keep the spine down, so that as you move the knees, you might start to sway a little bit. Can you keep that fixed? So once you've done about 3 or so each side, and stabilize the knees, and I want you to make sure that you think, right, they are stuck, they are not moving. The ribs, again, everything's drawn in, so the ribs are on the floor, pelvis is still off the floor, still feeling your glutes, still feeling your abs. So then you're going to move your hips. So knees do not move this time. You're moving your hips a little bit to one side, and then a little bit to the other. And you should feel that one hip drops, and I want you to squeeze it back up again. And then when you move to the other side, one hip will drop, squeeze it back up, move the hips to the side, squeeze the low hip up. So you might find that you start to climb a little bit of your shoulder bridge, but I want you to make sure that you're still keeping those ribs down and in. So this should, it's almost like each section of your body is kind of fighting against the other. So your quads, sorry, not your quads, your glutes are working to keep the hips level, and your abs are working to try to keep the ribs down. Those knees are trying to stay nice and still. So about 5 each way. And once we get to those 5 each way, continue on up with the shoulder bridge up to the top to lengthen through both knees. Almost that kind of reset, that lengthening, and then slowly rolling back down, and you can give the knees a hug. Okay. So from there, okay, so we're going to bring you into your 100. So you can choose what version of the 100 that you want to use, okay. So when you're ready, 3, 2, 1, off you go, 10 breaths. So no matter which version that you're in, the front and the back of the body are lengthening. So even if the head and shoulders are lifted, it's going to feel like the top of the body is shorter than the back of the body. But I want you to imagine that both top and bottom are getting longer. The ribs are pivoting in a little bit more to lift you from the chest. And the chin is just tucking in. Trying to keep that sense of drawing in but lengthening through the back of the neck. And 10 full breaths. Does it feel like the chin is lifting out? Can you keep it drawn in? When you get to the end of the 10 breaths, then give the back of one leg a hug. So you're going to take it into your hamstring stretch. So allowing that leg to reach up to the ceiling. So just keeping one leg up to the ceiling and the other leg on the floor. Bent is the easiest version to give you the stretch. Otherwise, you can straighten it if you feel you need to. But if that pulls the leg away from you, you're better off with the grounded leg bent. So again, as you're holding it in through there, imagine you're lengthening both sides of the waist, almost as if you're trying to almost lengthen the sit bone. So whenever you're coming up into a hamstring stretch, it's very easy on that lifted side for that to want to curl off. So I want you to try to find length, and almost that shortened side, I want you to lengthen it down. And then imagine that you're lengthening the thigh bone out of the socket on the stretch. Even your hands that are on the back of the leg are almost kind of tractioning and pulling it up a little. It's just like a token gesture. And then slowly releasing. Changing it over, other side again, as you lift that leg up, just noticing whether it feels like that hip doesn't move. So again, does the box stay as a box, both sides of the waist nice and long? And as the leg comes up towards you, can you either lengthen it a bit more to bring the stretch in, but still keep that sense of lengthening the side of the waist, maybe thinking about drawing that thigh bone out, pulling it up out of the socket. As much of a stretch as you feel is appropriate. And then from there, bring the other leg up, bring the soles of the feet together, and we'll take a butterfly. So taking the whole right side edges of the feet wherever you can get to, or maybe the ankles, and you're just using the elbows to press the knees open, so the feet might even be apart. So whatever feels the better position for you. And then slowly releasing, give the knees a hug in, and we'll rock side to side. Okay, so we're going to come into single leg stretch. So we're using, okay, so you can work one leg at a time if you choose to, or Carmen, you could have one foot on the ball. Otherwise, both legs are in tabletop. So our shoulders are on the mat, so I don't want you to let them round forward because then that's not a box. You kind of keep them connected. Two hands, again, you need both hands one on top of the other to be stronger than your legs. So you're pressing into the leg, you're blocking it at 90 degrees, and you're pulling your knee in. As you pull it in, stretch the other one away. Pause for a breath, in and out breath, and then change. And again, pausing in and out breath. The shoulders are going to want to come up around your ears. Try to keep them back. So you're almost pushing from your armpits, pushing down towards the knee as you press into it. And again, it's a full breath of a hold. In and out breath. Full breath of a hold. So don't rush those breaths. So I want you to make sure you do 5 on each side where you really do feel like you're having to work quite hard with that bent leg pulling in. So you feel it connecting into the lower tummy. Now, once you get to the end of those 5 each side, we're going to take it into double leg stretch. So you can relax the head and shoulders, and you can keep those legs and tabletop legs together. That feeling again of both sides being long. So you can choose whether you want to take both legs up to the ceiling, or whether you want to take them maybe to the highest rung on a ladder, or middle or lower, wherever you want to, up to about 45 degrees. Making sure that you're keeping those ribs drawn in, you're keeping the pelvis flat, so you don't feel like you roll onto your tailbone, trying to keep everything nice and long. So we're taking it through 10 with the legs. So really being as observant internally as you can, so that whenever those legs lengthen out, do the ribs get higher to the ceiling? Does your tailbone, does the weight on your pelvis, the back of the pelvis, tip a little bit more onto the tailbone side, end? Can you stop that from happening? Now, once you've done 10 with the legs, we're going to keep the legs in tabletop if you can, and we're going to be working with the arms and the upper body. So if you can from there, option to leave the head on the floor and just work with the arms like so, or you can curl it up and the arms are just going to your ears. If they go further back, they're going to pull you further down. So you're trying to work arms to ears. And as you're holding, again, just like your 100, trying to keep everything zipped in, that feeling of almost those two hip bones in the front of the body, almost trying to pull them apart. So 10 with the arms, just flowing through, knowing that when the arms go overhead, it wants to flare your ribs open. So you're trying to keep that connection of the ribs being tucked down and in, almost like they're tucking into your trousers or they're knitting together on the front of the body. Okay, now when you get to the end of those 10, take a full body stretch, because we're going to put both of those together for 10. So just taking that full body stretch. And then once we feel like we're ready, the arms are coming down as the legs draw in, you've taken them back up into tabletop. You can hug the knees in, so you can draw them in closer so you feel your lower back rounding, upper body lifted, or choice to stay upper body on the floor. So you're lengthening out, you choose again the height of the legs, arms going back to your ears, so it's a hug in, round back, lengthen the legs, neutral spine, don't let that turn into an arch. So again, whichever option you're choosing, you're trying to keep that control on the way through. So it's knowing that whenever you're opening out, if you start with the head and shoulders lifted, keep them lifted on the way through. If you're choosing to leave them on the floor, then they stay on the floor the whole way through. So using that feeling of connecting the ribs, keeping that little air space. When you're opening those legs out, you're keeping that little air space between your low back and the floor, but you'll squash that air space when you have the knees in. So 10 movements. Once you get the 10, again, you can take that little hug of the legs. Okay. And then from there, we're going to bring you arms up and over, bringing you onto your side. Okay, so set up for side kick. And once you get there on your side, so again, that long open body line, open hip line. And we're going to start first of all with 5 breaths, just in a balancing position. So both legs are on the floor. The top arm is up in a T position, making sure that it is, just have a wee check, does it look like it's in a straight line? Is it higher, is it lower, is it in front, is it behind? Can you get it just so that the arm is just dropping heavy into that socket, fingers pointing to the ceiling? So, yep, that's it. And the palm is facing forward when it's there. So it's straight up and sit up. Okay, so you're holding for 5 breaths there, legs are long and straight. That was just a quick denotation of where the arm was going to go. So I've got the sun belting in, so I have to be at a certain angle so that I can see y'all. So it's proving to be quite blinding. Damn those good days in sunshine. So once we've held for about 5 breaths there, so then we're going to take the top leg to hip height, keep the arm where it is. So top leg goes to hip height. So you're trying to hold steady for 5 breaths again. So we're taking the arm away as that potential crutch. So once you get to 5 breaths there, option is to work with the bottom leg lifted for the next one. And we're going to use that top leg to travel for 5 steps forwards and backwards. So it can be a really small movement, or it can be larger, but I don't want this top arm waggling on the way through. I want to do this. When the leg moves, does the arm counterbalance you? Can you keep it still? So that might mean it's a pretty small movement, an option for that bottom leg to be lifted or on the floor. So 5 movements. And then once we get to the end of those 5, you can bring that top hand onto the floor. Okay, so once it's on the floor, I'm using that little lean forward into it. The bottom leg, bring it forward about maybe 10, 20 degrees or so, and it's mostly straight. It can have a little bend if need be. Okay, so the top leg, I want you to think about it being that swinging leg coming forward with the foot flex. And you're trying to keep it in both sides of the waist long, almost like you're really trying to drop that hip bone. When the leg comes up, it's not on the floor, it's not any higher, it's on the table, and it's at hip height. When the leg comes in behind, point the toes and think about a little bit of external rotation on the leg. So we're just going to do one more like that, so nice and slow. So reaching it forward, flexing. Can you think about dropping that sit bone along? And then when you take the leg behind, that toe point and that external rotation. The temptation when we start to bend the leg here is that your knee's going to turn up, and I don't want you to let that happen. So we're going to ride the bike, but we're going to do it delicately. So we're going to draw the leg up, flex the foot. We're reaching forward to get the stretch. Are you rounding in the back? Pausing there. Everybody's so tempted to work because they know this movement. You're trying to keep those hips nice and long. You're still with the leg forward, still holding, toes are pointing, going up to the ceiling.
Oh, yes.
Taking the leg behind, toes are pointing. External rotation, and then sliding that leg as far behind as you can go. You're still leaning into that hand a little bit, tummy in tight, back isn't arching. How far can you take it? Kick your bottom. So the knee shouldn't go any higher, even though you're in a bit of external rotation. And then again, slowly through. So we're going to slow motion bike. So again, we're up forwards. Toes are pulling up. We're still up there. You're leaning into that hand. Slowly pointing and taking the leg in behind. How far behind can you go? I can do that. So we're just about to finish on this one. So you maybe, if you get a sense of where we're going, you know, make sure you even up on both sides. So kick the bottom and then draw the legs down. So you give a little slap if you need it on the hip, depending on how that's feeling. Okay. And then we're going to bring you onto your tummy. So you're coming into your swan. So hands are by the chest. So onto the tummy and hands just wider or wherever feels comfortable in the arms, just that little bit wider. Okay. So we're aiming to do that 2 phase of the movement. So legs are round about shoulder width apart. We'll turn out on the legs and the head is nice and straight. So whenever you're ready, neutral spine in place, tummy engaged. You're going to lift the chest up away from the floor and then back down. Now keep the chest there. You're going to lift the arms off the floor. Back of the hands as well as elbows. And the elbows are reaching down towards your sides. And then back down. So we're going to start arms first. Lift the arms, lift the chest, return the chest to the floor, and then return the arms down. So it's those 2 phases. Arms first, elbows and back the hands, reaching the elbows to your sides, and then lifting the chest, headline stays centered, and then return the chest, and then return the arms. You do another 8. So you're trying to get those little squeezes. When those arms come up, if it's just the elbows come up, you're only using about 1/3 of the muscles. So you're trying to make sure that the back of those hands are pressing up as well. And then that little squeeze of the armpits kind of pulling down the side seams. So with each of those 3, hopefully that's targeting into everything we want. And when you lift up through the back muscles, it might not feel as strong a work in through the shoulders, but it's getting the shoulders off and the shoulder blades down, the center of the back working. Those legs are lengthening, keeping the tops of the feet on the floor. So 10 full movements. How long can you reach those legs behind? How long can you stretch your head to the wall in front? Okay, when you get to the end of the 10th one, we're going to use the swan dive rock. So the hands are going to stay where they are, but back far enough that the elbows are off the floor. You can choose whether you want to push or not with them. So lifting the chest, same way if you want to add in a bigger range, you can give that little push and pull. So elbows are always still trying to find their way back to the side seams, and then lifting both legs. Or it might be the chest and then you lift one leg, depending on how the body's feeling. So just knowing that we want to try to get that flat back tilt, 10 movements or 5 each single leg, depending. But I want you to really focus in on trying to get the flat back. When that leg lifts, it wants to change your flat back. When you lift, those back muscles are doing most of the work. Your arms are just assisting you a little bit further. So if those arms are pushing, your back muscles are never switching off. They're trying to help you lift up as high as you can go. So keeping those tummies drawn in so you don't just feel like the ribs or belly are pushing into the floor. You know that they're always trying to tighten away from the floor. So when you get to your tag form, we're going to take you back into child's pose. Okay. So slowly we're going to be bringing you onto the floor again, and we're coming into your double leg kick. So the feet again can be around about hip to shoulder width, the hands resting onto the low back, one hand holding the other. So we're using this for every action that it brings. So the glutes should be squeezing to press the hips into the floor. So you shouldn't be getting that kind of sense of a sandwich starting. You're trying to squeeze everything down and in. As the legs are bending, feet are flexing, and that pulse, pulse, pulse. Glutes are still squeezing as you lengthen the legs and lift them, and the arms are trying to lengthen past your tailbone and lift off the floor. Head isn't lifting, it's looking at the floor to lengthen the back of the neck. Soften, squeeze the glutes. The glutes want to soften whenever we soften the rest of the body, but you're trying to keep the glutes active on the way through, so that every movement has the glute squeeze going on. And sometimes you do need to keep it in your mind, because once you start to bend your legs, your hamstrings want to take over. Keep those hips squeezing down. The head turning each time for 5 each side. Trying to use those arms. So noticing, do they bend and straighten on the way through? So you do feel a difference between those two positions. And once you're finished, we're going to be bringing you onto your other side. Okay. This is where Neela might make you wonky, so I'm wondering whether I might put you onto your back for this one, just so that we don't make you wonky. Unless you otherwise, if you wanted, I don't think you got most of the first movement, so you could do the single leg stretch at this point instead, Neela. Yeah. So your knees pushing in, both hands are kind of blocking the leg, and you're doing 10, holding it for about a second for one breath cycle on the squeeze. Okay. So 5 on each leg. Everyone else, you're on your other side, and the first position is just balancing on your side, legs are on the floor, and your top arm is up to the ceiling for 5 breaths. So once you're there, remember the hand is palm forwards, the arm is just dropping into the socket, so you know it's directly above you. It's not pulling you back, it's not pulling you forward, it's not close to your ear. So it's 5 breaths in through there. Now, once you've done those 5 breaths there, then you're going to be taking it into the top leg floating for 5 breaths. So Nuna, after that one. So Nuna, if you want to go into the double leg stretch, you can choose whether the legs go high or whether they go a bit lower, up to 45 degrees, keeping yourself in neutral. Okay? And 10 of those. So for those who are holding side balance with that top leg in hip height, so then from there, you've got that option of taking that bottom leg up if you want to work with it up for 5 small steps with that top leg. So again, making sure that hand isn't waving as the leg goes forwards and backwards. You're trying to pick the size of the movement that you can mostly control through there. So it's 5 steps through there. And then Nuala, once you've finished those 10, then you've got the arm action. So you can keep the legs there, and you can either have the arms for 10 going up and back, or you can have the upper body lifted as the arms go to your ears. So it's 10 trying to keep your ribs drawn in, okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody else on your side, so you're taking it in hand on the floor. Top leg is lifted, the bottom leg is forward about 10 degrees. It can be a little bit bent or not, 10 to 20 degrees. So you're leaning in. So remember these, there's only 2 of them, really slow. You're coming forward with that foot as high as you can go, keeping the waistline as long as you can, toes pull the shin. And then from there, slowly coming back. As you take it back, you're pointing the toes. Slight external rotation. Reach, 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 reach. How far can you go? Making sure you're leaning into that hand, trying to keep the back from bending. And then again, slowly coming forward. So again, as high as you feel you can go, toes pulling towards your shin, and then coming back. So Nuala, whenever you're ready, you're doing both of those actions at the same time. So you can choose for 10. Legs are lengthening and the arms are up and over, and the upper body can be lifted. So for everyone else, then you've got these 2 movements now with the bend of the leg. So once that leg comes in bent, you're going to stretch the foot out. You're taking the leg behind, toes pointing, a little bit of external rotation. And then you're kicking your bottom, making sure the knee doesn't go higher. And then again, flex the foot, pull it up, reach, stretch through the back of the leg. Toes pointing, reach, 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 reach. And again, kick the bottom and draw it up. So there's 2 of those. Once you're done, again, you need to do the walk there. Try how that slow motion is felt. And then we're going to bring everyone one at a time. Resting head onto your hands. And we're going to bring you toes together, heels falling to the outside. Okay? So neutral spine in place. So we're going to work one leg at a time, and we're doing those kind of windscreen wipers. So it's internal and external rotation. So you're sliding the leg open out to the side. You can see. So you're sliding the leg open and the heel is leading. And then you're going to rotate the thigh so that the heel is turned in, and then slide it back in. So rotate, heel leads out. Rotate, heel leads in. So you're trying to work with full range of movement, trying to relax the body on the floor, let the head rest onto the hands, so it takes the long spine to keep that control. So it's 5 on one side, and certainly, so Carolyn, if the foot isn't happy to go flat like that, then you can always lift the leg a little bit, makes you work harder, but so you're just trying to kind of wash with the foot across the floor. So the heel leads out, rotate, the heel leads in, rotate. The heel leads out. So you're on your tummy there, Nuala. So toes are together, heels are apart, and you're leading with one leg. So you're doing 5 on one leg. So you lead with the heel out, and then turn it so that the heel is in, and then bring the leg back into center. So it is that difference of just trying to go out and in, out and in. Once you've done 5 on one side, again leading out with the heel, rotate, leading in. Out with the heel and leading in. So 5 each leg. And once we've done those 5 on each leg, so we're then going to bring you up for press ups. So in breath to prepare, hands under the shoulders, out breath to push up into box or 3/4 or full, always the option. So then from there, okay, so you're standing it up, getting yourself in position, whichever shape you want to work with. Long arms, external rotation, that plugging of that shoulder down into the side seams. So we're going to go narrow for 5. So nose between the hands easier, nose going forward if your hand's more challenging. So taking it through 5 press ups. And as you take it through those 5, notice what's happening with your tummy. Does it feel like you're pulling in? When you push with the hands, it should feel like your tummy is drawing in quite strong. Once you've done 5, we're going to go into the wide arm position. So we're going to let those elbows go out. I know they might be going out already, but we're trying to keep them intentionally under control. So those fingers are turning out a little bit, the hands are wider than your mat. You're trying to keep that sense. When you go down, elbows are squeezing by your sides. And when you push the arms along and straight, there's a little bit of extra external rotation as the arms lengthen. So again, working through. Just for 5. And when you've done those 5, we're then going to be bringing you into your roll to come up into standing. Okay. So hand to hands and knees.
Oh, that one, right.
I would be impressed.
My brain's not working anymore, do you know?
You're okay, you're not feeling it. In terms of that, I would be very impressed if everybody did roll to come up to stand. That would make my day. Hands and knees and then roll is fine up to stand if that feels okay. So planting the feet around about that hip distance apart, okay? And we're going to take it into your squats again. So we're going to take it in through 10 with 10 pulses. So when we draw the hips back, arms can come forward. So still thinking about that sandwich idea so that you know that you're sending those hips far enough back that your body does fold a little bit, but you're not just intentionally dropping your body. You're working to keep the back upright. So 10 movements with going back, you're feeling that opening sit bone, squeezing closed on the sit bone. Opening sit bones, squeezing closed. Now when we get to the end of those 10, you must be close.
One more.
One more, okay. When we're down, you're going to take those little pulses, trying to go that little bit lower. Every time you pulse, remember there's a squeeze into your heels to push yourself back up out of that pulse. So 10, weight on the heels. And then once you've done 10, then press in through the heels, drive it up and open. Okay. So we're then going to take little side movements. So you can have the toes angled out so that when we bend a leg, it's moving in the direction of your toes. The size of this is up to you. So if you don't want to move very far on this one, if the legs are narrow, you probably will go knees over toes a bit. So it's trying to find the width that you know that you can go to so that you're not going to go too far. They're still going to go over a little bit, but not too far. Now with coordination, so whichever leg is bent, the other arm is bent, okay? Yeah. So we're taking it across, the body is staying up, it's just a counterbalance through the arms. So you're drifting from one to the other, and if it feels hard and you want to come back just to doing the normal squats, coming down as far as you feel comfortable, or if you want to come into calf stretches again, so you can choose. So we're taking it through 5 on each side. When we get to the end of those 5 on each side, you can take your hands to the knees. You're going to push into one knee. So if I'm pushing into my right leg, I'm dropping my right shoulder and twisting to the left. Trying to sink it down. So I'm stretching, maybe twisting the rib cage, looking back up to the left, and then change. So pushing into the left, I'm dropping the left shoulder forward, I'm rotating the ribs to the right and looking up to the right, sinking the squat a little bit deeper, and again, change. So each time you're twisting, can you sink those hips a little deeper? And then again, change, sink those hips a little deeper. And then coming back into center, heel toe, drawing the feet closer together. So this time we're with arms, okay? So you're going to hold maybe like about a quarter squat in through here. So you just, again, weight mostly centered, but slightly back onto the knees, just ever so slightly. So the arms are by your side, so they're not hunched up, elbows are long and low. So you're reaching the arms one forward, one backwards. Little fingers reaching high on that back arm. And I want you to notice whether your shoulders are collapsing, or can you almost treat it like a circle, that it's reaching down and back. So you feel it squeezing back here, rather than coming up into the front of the shoulder, or the top of the shoulder. And then again, back in through center, elbows long and low, squeezing together, chest open, reaching up tall. So concentrate on that bottom arm for me first of all. So you know you're getting all of this working, pressing back and pressing back. So then start to think about the top arm. So it wants to reach as far up to the ear as you can go. So you're trying to work the muscles on the back of the arm to get the arm up. So it should feel like down here is helping to pull that shoulder blade down to lift you. And the same again as you switch, shoulder blades coming down to help you lift. And as you're focusing on the top arm, you forget about the bottom arm. So you're trying to keep that sense that the shoulder is reaching behind, reaching it behind. So taking the last movement, finishing on the opposite side to where you started, and then relax them down, and we'll take them into just a few rotations, palm ups, palms up, palm under. And then opposites. Okay, and then clasping the fingers together, reaching the arms up and then turning the palms up to the ceiling. Let's see. So reaching those arms up overhead. Take a little side bend. And to the other side. And again, over. And as you come back in the center, hands behind the head, press the elbows open, let the chest puff out. And then reaching down, place the hands on the bottom, squeeze the elbows together, open out through the chest. And release. Take your hands into prayer position. And then lower it down. The heels and hands might come apart, but it's just so you're getting a bit of a stretching through those forearms. And then turn the fingers upside down. And then try to pull the forearms upwards. But don't let the shoulders come up. Try to keep the shoulders down as the wrists come up. And then just give the arms a little bit of a shake. And then if we take the feet a wee bit wider, so we're going to come into just a few hip circles. And change direction. Okay. And then from there, the balance side of things again, or if you need to hold on to something, you can, but drawing the leg up towards you. And as it comes up, just taking it into a few circles in one way, and a few circles the other. And again, the box stays a box. Draw it up. So tummy muscles are drawing in. Posture is tall. High feet wide. Okay, so then taking it into that quad stretch once you're ready. So again, thinking about that drop of the tailbone, pulling it in. And noticing whether, does it feel like you're able to take that knee a little bit further behind you or underneath you? And yes, take it on the other side. So again, opening up the front of that hip line. Making sure the knee's not drifting out, trying to keep it in narrow. Okay, so again then taking that little bit of a lunge stance. We're going to do two positions here. So in that lunge stance, feet are around about 3.5 width apart, just so you've got your balance. And notice whether the hips are twisted. You're trying to keep the hips facing forward, the back toes pointing forward. So again, it's that calf stretch. So wherever you can get to try to lengthen the Achilles, the calf at the back, wherever the hands to be. So again, that feeling that the core is drawing in from there. Now with that, the heel press down, maybe even just try to bend the knee a little bit. So everybody's range of movement will be different depending on ankle mobility, but maybe when you try to bend the knee, does that increase the stretch a little bit? If it feels good, stay there. If it doesn't, stay with the legs straight, but it's just to see, it can challenge just the closing down at the front of the ankle. It might give you a slightly different stretch. It can also make it a little bit more unstable. And then lengthen it out and switch it over. So again, once we get there on the other side, toes pointing forward on that back foot. And then making sure you're trying to press that heel down, posture's nice and tall. Finding that balance. So holding that heel down to the floor, and then if it feels like you're able to bend the knee just a little bit, certainly on this side I find it much harder to try to keep my heel down once I bend the knee. So it's holding. Okay, and then release. So we're going to take it into a little bit of outer hips and side body. So take the arm up. We're going to do triceps first. So taking the hand in behind you, whether you're pushing from in front or whether you're pulling the arm in behind. And if you want to add in from there, so depending how that feels, if the head is up, the back is long, trying to keep those ribs drawn in, can you bring it into a side bend? Maybe even the hips are pressing out to the side to pull it lower to the hip area. And we're going to stay with that arm. You can either stay in triceps or you can take the arm to pull across for standing mermaid. So you can take the leg across, so if it's the right arm you're stretching, the right leg is coming in behind. And you can open again the hip if you choose to, you can bend it in, you can reach with the arm, whatever feels stable, as well as stretch all the way down. And when you're ready, other side, so again, hand coming onto the back, drawing the elbow either behind or across, tall body, chin up, ribs in, and then adding in that side bend, maybe even allowing the hips to move to the side. And from there, if you choose to add in the leg, taking that left leg in behind, reaching it over into that side bend, and again you can choose whether you just take a hold of the wrist, reaching it tall, or whether you want to stay with the triceps. And slowly releasing, taking those few shoulder circles just to let them soften out. And I'm just going to take kind of relaxed swing with the arms. But when the arm goes up and over, it's like you're doing that tricep movement. It's like you're going to give yourself a wee pat on the back every time the arm goes up and over. And as the arm goes up and over, imagine the ribs are opening out just like we did in that stretch. The bottom arm is just going to swing up. It might be kind of reaching a little bit into the armpit. And the body will kind of turn and rotate. Okay, and then let the arms relax down. We'll just take it into the neck, just drawing chin to chest. And again. And then slowly, again, keeping the mouth closed and reaching, almost projecting the chin forwards and upwards, just to stretch a little bit in through the front of the throat. And then back down again, chin to chest, circle the head towards the right shoulder, and down, and then towards the left. And down. So a few each side, and then drawing the chin to the chest and then back into center. Ready for your breaths. Nice and gentle. Nice and relaxed through the arms, open through the hips and the ribs, and that soft squat. Lift and reach. Lift and reach. Okay.